Bayer Leverkusen is the new German champion. The first undefeated team in Bundesliga history. No one has ever passed through the Bundesliga without a defeat. 90 points were exceeded only once by Jupp Heynckes Bayern in 2012-2013, earned 91. A new addition to the list of great German teams. Bayer under Alonso will be remembered forever. The style of Bayer, magnificent fast ball movement. No one in Europe passes at such high speed. An effective counter-pressing thanks to which Bayern doesn't let opponents pass beyond the midfield. Florian Wirtz, the main creator, Granit Xhaka, a monumental figure in the center of field. Alex Grimaldo and Jeremy Frimpong are incredibly productive pair of fullbacks. Jonathan Tah, the wall. The most important match of the season, a 3-0 victory over Bayern in the 21st round. Bayern was unbeaten, leading the Bundesliga with 52 points out of 60 possible, while Bayern lagged behind by just 2 points. For perspective, 50 points for Bayern after 20 rounds is the sixth best result in Bundesliga history. Also a superb performance, but Alonso outplayed Tuchel tactically. Sometimes Bayer didn't secure 3 points until the 19th minute, sometimes even lost. But then Alonso time kicked in. 18 goals in the 90th plus minute in all competitions. This team never gets nervous, says Granit Xhaka. Bayern Munich is not a champion of Germany anymore. And no trophies at all for the first time since 2012 season. Even the German Super Cup is missing, a 3-0 loss to Leipzig. And they didn't qualify for the new German Super Cup because they missed second place in the last round. So in August, Bayer will play against either Stuttgart or Kaiserslautern if they win German Cup. That's a complete failure. Tuchel's Bayern doesn't resemble the classic Bayern of the last 10-15 years. There is no territorial dominance, no devastating power, no deadly pressing. Now, after 1-0, Bayern could either step back and score repeatedly on the counter-attack, or they could easily concede and suffer even a 1-1. Tuchel's Bayern is more pragmatic, and this pragmatism can only be justified by trophies. There are none. The symbol of Tuchel's Bayern, Konrad Leimer in the pivot zone. While one of the best deep-lying playmakers of modern time, Joshua Kimmich, is pushed to the right flank of defense. It's not that Kimmich is superb, and Leimer is lousy in the Champions League playoff. Leimer coped well with Tuchel's setup. It's about priorities and new gameplay values. The same goes for Eric Dyer in the center of defense. Under Hansi Flick, Dyer couldn't play due to the highest defensive line. Under Tuchel, Dyer is the main defender of Bayern. This season has been one of the endless injuries and passive conflicts with Kimmich, Goretzka, Müller. Clearly struggle with Tuchel, but there have been no harsh public clashes. Luckily, Harry Kane has easy peeled up goals. Halfway the season, Bayern was among the best teams in Bundesliga history in terms of points. The problems increased after a terrible head-to-head match with Bayer Leverkusen. Injuries, a dead positional attack, another crisis of Sané. He had a chronic problem as soon as the second half of the season begins. Some injuries, importantly, after a 3-0 victory over Bayern, Bayer didn't drop any points until the official championship 29th round. So no matter how Bayern clashed, dealing with such Bayer is almost impossible. The triumph of Bayer is indeed the success of magnificent Leverkusen team, not a gift from Bayern. Bayern would do well to start the new season with a clean slate, but there is the problem with whom to start. Bayern has been looking for a new coach for several months now, and due to the decision-making problems, there is no consequences on any candidate. The same thing happened last summer and this winter when Bayern looks sluggish and clumsy on the transfer market. Big question for the sporting management. Now, my goal is to outmark three main trends of this season. And the first one is disaster in the middle of the table, because Bundesliga can be divided into three parts: the top five, with Bayern, Stuttgart, Bayern, Leipzig, and Dortmund, a large block of mid table teams, and two objectively worst, with Darmstadt and Köln. There were a clear quality gap between these parts. Few clubs from 6th to 16th place stood out. Hoffenheim lacked a proper defense, Eintracht lacked consistency, Freiburg played without a solid defensive center duo due to injuries, Augsburg was terrible at the start of the season, Wolfsburg under Niko Kovac is a constant disaster, Gladbach and under Gerardo Soani is a disaster too. Bochum couldn't handle their own pressing intensity. Union isn't as solid as before. Mainz had a bad luck. Sharp Heidenheim took advantage of the middle table weakness. That's something to be happy about. And Werder, longtime Bundesliga fans may wonder, but look at a current squad. Weak. They even sold Niklas Füllkrug in the summer without a clear replacement plan. The second point is forward assistance. I would call it that way because all forwards also had a lot of assists, like Harrykane with 8, Loic Openda with 7, Denis with 9, and for example, Victor Boniface with 8, and Fulkrug also with 8, Marvin Duksh with 9, and so on, so on, so on. It's clear in elite football there are fewer and fewer goal scoring forwards, those who are useful inside the penalty area and no one else. Forward players are needed who can work without the ball, fit into the team's tactics, and contribute not only with goals but also with assists. Kane is the top scorer, but he also has a great understanding of the partners. His relationship with Leroy Sané in the autumn was superb. Dukšat Werder is both the main sniper and the main creator. Füllkrug is ready to lay off the ball under pressure. Like Openda is here to break away in rapid counterattacks and can spot not only the opponent's goal but also their teammate in a better position. Like Boniface is an elegant monster, I would name him that way. The third point is that the best teams of the season have the best possession. Top 7 Bundesliga teams by points are Bayer Leverkusen, Stuttgart, Bayern, Leipzig, Dortmund, Eintracht, and Hoffenheim. And Bundesliga teams by possession ranking looks exactly the same. In previous Bundesliga seasons, such coincidents were absent. They were also absent in top leagues. Ball possession is not a measure of quality, but only a play style. But this season, Bundesliga teams that controlled the ball achieved more success and looked better than those who didn't. The top 5 teams had possession rates above 55%, Eintracht had 52, and so on. Bayer and Stuttgart showcased examples of superb positional attacks, and perhaps their success will encourage other teams to adopt that style. However, last season there was an antithesis. Daniel Farke's Gladbach with 53 points per session, but it was safe possession with few scoring opportunities, and they were forced from the end of the table. And there is also a huge basis to talk about the best non champion coach, who is for sure Sebastian Hoeness this season. He saved Stuttgart from relegation last year, despite losing key players over the summer like Endo or Sosa, and despite ignoring constant clashes in the top management, he still created one of the best German teams in recent years. Stuttgart's second place is a well deserved result, and in a year without the monstrous Bayer, they could have competed for the championship. Stuttgart had previously won the Bundesliga in 2006-2007 season, but they had fewer points than they do this season, 70 versus 73. And with that magnificent football, they earned those 73 points. Hoeness Stuttgart boys play ball positional football. Manchester City and Arsenal also play positional football, but Guardiola and Arteta act much more cautiously. In City and Arsenal matches, possession often shows down the pace, calming the game. For Stuttgart, every possession is a romantic tale of scoring a beautiful combination goal. Fortunately, we've seen plenty of beautiful combination goals this year. For instance, Chris Funrich on the left can dribble inside, shifting into the center, and can initiate a short combination around him with Maxi Mittelstadt or Hiroki Ito and Ankel Stiller. Then, just between the lines, Dennis Undo opens up, ready to exploit the defensive zone. Serra Girossi could serve as either a target man waiting for a cross or he could make runs behind the defense. This is football that's incredibly enjoyable to watch and it brings results. Five Stuttgart players have been called up for Euro 2024 at home. None of them had been previously invited to German national team. It's just another beautiful fact about Hannah's positive influence. And the likely scenario is the sale of leaders, but Hannah's football has initiated so many players. And Hannes himself will surely stay with his promising. Now it's time to talk about best transfers of this campaign. And the fifth place takes Angelo Stiller from Hoffenheim to Stuttgart for just 5 million. And it's interesting that Hoeness always takes Stiller. They met in Bayern's second team, then Stiller ended up in Hoffenheim right after Hoeness' appointment, and then Stuttgart. It's a great player coach duo. Number four, Maxi Mittelstadt. And that's interesting because the sum was really extraordinary. It's worth just 500,000 million. Henne's huge contribution and a player who wasn't even a regular starter in relegated Hertha turned into one of the Bundesliga best fullbacks with an impressive attacking contribution. And Mittelstadt not only crosses and shoots, he also creates combinations, goes into the box through the central axis, and makes a lot of danger on the opponent's half. Number three, and it's Loica Penda, who came from Lens to Leipzig for just 35 million and a record that was a record transfer for RB, but justified 24 plus 7 in goal and assists only in the Bundesliga. Openda has seamlessly fit into Leipzig's sharp football. He elegantly runs behind the defenders. It's easy to imagine that in a year or two, Leipzig will earn at least twice as much as they spend. Number two, and it's Bayern, and it's Granit Xhaka. That's an atypical transfer for Bundesliga. They rarely pay for 30-year-olds, but Xhaka has become a mental leader and a central figure on the field both. He's 31 and there is a good chance he will stay at the top level for a few more years, and it's hard to imagine a championship team without him. And the best one, it's Alex Grimaldo. It costed Bayern nothing. He came as a free agent, and the deal with Grimaldo was agreed in back in May. That was a fantastic job for probably one of the best fullbacks in the world football right now. After giving a prize to Bayern for their ultimate performance this season, it's time to talk about their worst game that took place against Atalanta yesterday. Atalanta's victory was entirely deserved and it marked Bayern's worst performance out of all 52 matches. It was the perfect moment to end their long and impressive and unbeaten streak. Who else could rival Atalanta for the title of Bayern's most troublesome opponents? There are two obvious choices: Stuttgart and Karabakh. Stuttgart delivered their best performance against Bayern in the first half of the first round without giving Alonso team any chance. There were numerous opportunities, constant high ball recoveries, and a stable build-up from the back with minimum threat to their own goal. By half-time, Stuttgart led 3 to 0.6 in XG, only 1-0 in actual goals, and in the second half Bayern pressed harder and equalized. No team before or after that match dominated Bayern like Stuttgart did in the first half. Stuttgart had two more attempts in the quarterfinal of the German Cup and in the second round of the Bundesliga. In both cases, Stuttgart took the lead, even leading 2-0 in the championship game, looking no worse but still ended up without a victory. Bayern won 3-2 in a cup and equalized 2-2 in a championship with equalizer on 90 plus 6. Karabakh tried four times, twice in group stage and twice in the round of 16. The best quality game was in the first leg of the playoffs. The Azerbaijani team neutralized Bayern pressing, countered effectively, and led 2-0 at halftime. In the second half, Bayern, almost without any opportunities, managed to equalize. First, Florian Wirtz punished a mistake, and then there was Alonso's time and a goal from Patrick Schick at 90 plus 2. Karabakh also looked strong in the return leg, leading 2-0 again, but there, Bayern managed to turn it into 3-2 and win. Unlike Stuttgart and Karabakh, Atalanta only played against Bayern once. They did not dominate Bayern in terms of expected goals, and it didn't matter really. They comfortably led 2-0 by the 26th minute and managed the game superbly. Atalanta's personal pressing was extraordinary. It felt like watching not a European Cup final match, but a generated by ChatGPT chatbot with the request ideal personal care. Now, how symbolic that such a match as delivered by Atalanta, the queen of the personal pressing, setting the trend of personal management in Europe. In recent years, there have been moments when Atalanta deviated from this style, but in the golden game, they brought the long awarded title. Gasperini's team erected a living monument to itself. It was very difficult for Leverkusen. Atalanta short plays through Bayern attacks and midfields. If Wirtz dropped deep, one of the central defenders immediately followed him. If Bayern chose a long pass, Atalanta won the duels. Yes, duels were one of the main aspects of this match, and Atalanta committed 21 fouls. Only once this season they break the rules more frequently, but there were no feeling that Atalanta couldn't keep up with Bayern. They disrupted the game, stopped the opposition's attack, and prevented Bayer from finding the right rhythm. Physically, composure, and at the same time, the aggression necessary for this style, synchronized actions, and boldness. Bravo to Atalanta. There were very bad games from Xhaka and Palacios. Actually, it was a poor game for all Bayern players, but especially for Granit Xhaka and Ezequiel Palacios, and providing stability under pressure and ensuring quality positional attacks. Bayern lacked them. It's important to mention Atalanta 3-4-2-1 formation perfectly overlapped Bayern 3-4-2-1. It was ideal for personal care, and each Atalanta player had a specific target to take down. Against Xhaka and Palacios acted Ederson and Koopmeiners. It was an elite match. They constantly covered Xhaka and Palacios, forced them to cut back, won the duels, and quickly retreated behind the ball line if Bayern managed to advance even 20 meters. Atalanta personal care neutralized Wirtz too. On the right, David Dapacosta denied with Alex Grimaldo, and it was bad news for Bayern, but worse than neutralizing Grimaldo and Wirtz, they couldn't be any news. With neutralized Xhaka and Palacios, it's difficult to create chances. With neutralized Grimaldo and Wirtz, it's difficult to play football at all. On pleasant bonus, Atalanta scored the first goal from under Palacios and the second after Xhaka turned. Bayern tested Atalanta in various ways, and Gasperini team was ready for everything. Bayern had a categorically weak attack in the match, but the team can be accused of pressing only 1 point. At different stages, different qualities were required within the incapable personal pressure from Atalanta. Initially, Alonso team tried to confuse the opponent on the right side of the field. Little Josip Stanisic moved into the center with possession while Jeremy Frimpong positioned himself wide, and then Kolasinac and Ruggieri were required to pass attentively. Potential runs in the Frimpong Kolasinac zone were also threatening. Pressing this zone made sense in terms of nominal duels, but in practice, Atalanta was excellent both individually and in player passes. Frimpong was only allowed to penetrate the penalty area once throughout the game. Towards the middle of the half, Wirtz and Adli swapped position and Floro started playing false nine. Adli became an additional player on the left, where together with Grimaldo they tested this area, and free Wirtz also often helped them. This stretch led to several promising combinations, but certainly didn't puzzle Atalanta. In the second half, Bayer relied more on attacking players, including Victor Boniface, but Atalanta deprived them of space. Now the team lined up in a 5-4-1 without a pressing trio in attack, as at the beginning, but the flanks were better defended, which did allow Bayer to organize a quality assault. To defeat Bayer, it's not enough to simply execute the initial plan. You need to be prepared for Plan B from Bayer. Throughout the season, we've seen that they have it, and it was evident even in the final. We just didn't notice it because Atalanta's power. It's important to highlight not only the tremendous mastery of personal pressing, but also this reaction. And Isaac Hinn was the hero here. In the final, Hinn brilliantly played against three opponents. He started against Adli, then moved into the central zone against Wirtz, and after halftime dueled with Boniface. Three maximally different types: a speedy forward, a free creator, and a pure striker with good physique. He outplayed each one. Against Adli, speed under runs into space that was the key quality needed. To counter Wirtz, it was necessary to move into unusual zones, to go all the way and not let him turn. The duel with Boniface often came down to moments of receiving the ball with his back to goal, and the goal was to create maximum discomfort or even anticipate before receiving. The Swede seems to be the ideal defender for Atalanta's style of play. The spring has he has been phenomenal. On the way to the final, he shut down Darwin Nunes and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Hina is more than just a master of personal play. He combines the necessary physical attribute and agility with a high level of intelligence, more than is usually required in such system. Notice how much more often than other Atalanta defenders Isaac scans the field. He combines total attention to the direct opponent with timely assistance to colleagues when there is a chance to put out a fire. Moreover, his subtly understands the logic of the opponent's attacking players. Not surprisingly, until the age of 21, he was forward in a youth team. He even played alongside Alexander Isak from Newcastle. Reading the game combined with the data from personal play makes him a monster for Gasperini's system. The final showed the full range of his qualities. And finally, there was Ademola Lookman, who made the difference this match. Atalanta had almost impeccable control, but there were no constant sources of threat in attack. Don't think of this as a complaint. They didn't need them with such a defense and Lookman's execution. Ademola scored the second goal fastest after a set piece, added a goal from long range, and punished in space on the counter, completing a hat trick. Extremely composed and versatile playing from him. Of course, in Atalanta football this is not the main thing. Perhaps after praising him for his participation in pressing and in the first time and relented work on the flank in the second, Gasperini will say a few words about attacking actions. That was a total performance.